Well, welcome to Living Fully Fit with Coach AJ. And if you're watching for the first time, thanks for watching. And go ahead and hit subscribe, send me a like, and send me a follow. And if you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to send it to someone else as well. Let's get into it. We're looking at next steps. Because for many of you, it's a new year. You're looking at a new you. You're looking at what can I do to improve myself, or how do I propel myself to the next steps in life? And that goes with anything, whether it's your fitness physically or mentally, or if it's financial well being, or a new job or relationship, whatever it is, you're looking at that next step. What is that for you, and what does that look like? Because if you're not asking those pertinent questions, you're not going to grow and you're not going to progress. And no matter what part in this journey you are in life, you have to look at the next step. Because let's say you think you've arrived, you've reached some sort of success, that's great. But the question you have to ask yourself is, what's my next step? What's next for me? How do I propel? And if you're not asking yourself, what have I learned from this success? Then you're not going to grow from this success. And you should never get comfortable in that success either. And the same goes with failure. You can't get too comfortable and just wallow in your failure. Like, I failed, it's over, I give up. A lot of people do that. They just give up. They say, I'm done. This was too hard for me. This wasn't for me. And they don't continue going. And if we did that with everything, you would never learn how to ride a bike. You would never open a business. You would never have good relationships. You would just be single person with a bunch of cats and, living on welfare. But the reality is you're not. You're not that kind of person. Really, you're not that kind of person to give up when you experience failure. Because failure is a lesson, just like success is a lesson. We shouldn't get too comfortable in failure or success. Because what we do is we get complacent, we get stuck, and we stay there. And that really draws us to the next thing is plateauing. People that plateau aren't plateauing, they're comfortable. If you're plateauing, it means you're comfortable. It means you've arrived at a certain point and you're like, okay, this is good enough for me. And it should never be good enough for you. You should always want to better yourself, to learn something new, to grow, to find that, again, next step. So you've reached a certain position in life, you reach a certain plateau, you reach a certain, trait or goal or whatever it is. You've lost that certain amount of weight, or you've gained that job you've always wanted. You had the family you've always desired. But then now what? What do you do with that? Once you have it, once you've arrived, what do you do with that information, with that goal, with that success? That's a good question, right? You have to ask yourself and be honest with it. And then what you have to do is come up with a plan of, what do I do from here? Where do I go from here? How do I continue growing from here? Even the most successful people who have arrived, maybe in your eyes, they're not thinking they've arrived. They keep thinking of what's next. Okay, I've arrived to this level of success and determination and money and goals or whatever it is. They're always thinking ahead. The most successful people are not comfortable in their success. They are thinking ahead. And I'm not saying you should overdo it and unbalance your life and just be overdoing it with everything, but you should always be thinking, okay, I've reached this goal. I've paid off all my debt. I own the home. I have a successful business. But what is next for me? How do I take this to the next level? And that doesn't always mean making more money or getting a bigger house. That means, maybe, what do I do with this knowledge I have? Maybe I could share this and help other people reach the success I've reached, paying it forward, so to speak. Same with failure. Well, I've failed, I've lost so many things. What can I do with this failure? Not only can I teach myself how to be better, how to improve, but I can teach others how to be better and how to improve. For me, I've been through divorce multiple times. I've lost jobs. I've been fired. I've quit jobs. I've jumped in different situations. At 31 years old, I changed my entire trajectory in my career. I was a youth pastor for 14 years and I was plateauing. I was in successful youth ministry. I was growing my youth, but personally, I felt I was plateauing. I wasn't going anywhere. I had nothing to show for the 14 years of youth ministry, except the fact that I did reach kids for the lost. The lost kids, and I brought them to Jesus, and that was great. But personally, I felt I had nothing to show for. I didn't have a savings account. I didn't have retirement account. I got paid next to nothing, like peanuts basically. And looking back now, changing my trajectory and starting over at 31 was very scary. Joining the army as an kind of older person was quite intimidating. But my failure or my whatever plateau I was in, I learned from that. I jumped and I took that leap of faith, that and that risk, and I saw way more reward. And you have to look at that for yourself now too, with the new year or whatever path in your life you're in right now, is where are you at and where is this journey going to take you? If you're not looking at the risk and willing to take the risk to take you off that plateau, then you're going to stay at that plateau. There was a lot of risk switching my career midway through my life, but there was way more reward. And I'm seeing the fruits of that labor now in my 40s. 10 years later, and after I've been in the army about 10 years, I've seen a lot more fruit from that huge risky venture, going to basic training at 31 years old, putting my body through that, my mental, mindset into that. And I look at now, it's like, wow, I'm so glad I did that because the youth ministry wasn't doing it for me. As much as I loved the youth part of it, the politics of church and the stress of certain toxic leadership I had just wasn't doing it. It was stressing me out more. And I've had good and bad leaders in the army too, but luckily, there's been more good than bad, and there's better accountability in the army than there was in the ministry. Um, but what I'm saying is here, that next step was what I needed to take. I looked at my life as a plateau and I wasn't going anywhere, so I felt the need to take a huge risk. And my challenge for you as you're listening to this and watching this is, what risk do you need to take you outside that plateau or outside the mindset of success? I feel like I've reached a certain point in my life right now where I'm finding success now in my personal life and in my professional life. And what do I do with that? I'm still growing, of course, but I'm also looking at, well, what can I do with this? How can I share this with others? That way they can experience it. And how do they find that next step for their life, whether it's from failure, from plateau, or from success? And you have to look at this in your own life, look at your life right now, where you're at right now. Do you need to take a step upward towards the next step of your success? Share it down to people who need it. Do you need to get outside that plateau and take a different risk? Because with great risk, there is great reward, and you can't always try to manage that risk or try to mitigate it all the time. Now, again, reasonably, yes, you should mitigate certain risks. You don't want to go too crazy and lose all your money and lose your family just because of a wild adventure. Be smart, again, be logical, do what works for you. Because what works for some people doesn't work for everybody. I don't recommend everybody at 31 years old join the army. Doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody's meant for the military right now. You'll see coaches, especially on these platforms, that will tell people, this is my method and this is the method that will work for everybody. They're lying to you. I'm telling you right now. As a life coach, as a wellness fitness coach, I'm telling you right now, they're lying to you. There is no one size fits all for anything, for any kind of success or growth. There's certain things that work for some and certain things that don't work for some. And you have to find that niche for yourself and look into what works for your personality, your lifestyle, your family structure, your environment, where you're at. Not everything works for everybody. And so you have to figure that out. But also, you have to be willing to go outside your box and your protective bubble and what you're used to and what you're comfortable with. Because that goes back to the whole idea of plateauing. Why did I stay in ministry for 14 years, even though I wasn't seeing any personal growth or financial growth or really any future in it? It was because honestly, I was comfortable. I felt like that's all I knew. I had my degree in that. That's all I knew. I knew youth ministry. I was really good at it, and I was very intimidated and scared of getting outside of that. So I stayed in it. I didn't get outside of ministry because it was safe. And so, because of the comfort ability of it all, I just stayed in it, even though I was miserable and I didn't see any personal fulfillment in it. And what it really took was, my wife at the time, she's not my ex, it took her to kind of propel me to take that risk. It took me looking at myself, and I was going through a hard time too. At the time, I was not living right. I was not doing the right things in my personal life. and I made a lot of bad decisions during that time frame. But getting out of that environment is what saved me as a person. I don't think I would be the person I am today if it wasn't for the fact that I got out of that and I took that risk, that leap of faith. So maybe you're at that point right now. Maybe you're at that point where you have kind of been just coasting along in life. You're you're getting by. It feels comfortable. Yeah, this is okay. This is all you know. I get it. I've been there. I've been that point where this is all I know. I don't know what else to do. What am I supposed to do with my life? I don't know. I get it. Been there, done that. I own the t-shirt. But don't get too comfortable in that, because what's going to happen is you'll lose that sense of fulfillment and purpose when you stay in that comfortable zone, that plateau. Even if you reach a certain level of success, okay, I feel successful. I've reached that rank, or I've reached that job interview. I got that job I've always wanted, and I'm growing in it. I'm making the money, and I'm not in debt, and I have all these great things going for me. Don't get comfortable in that position. What you should be doing is, okay, now that I've reached this, do I keep growing? You don't always have to keep going up the ladder, but maybe what you can do with that is utilize that and share the knowledge you've gained, share the wisdom, share the life lessons, the success with other people, and help them reach that level. That in itself is fulfilling. Because maybe you're in that position, you're comfortable, you're financially well, you're in a position where you're not stressed, you're not in a toxic environment, so to speak, you have a healthy body, all those things. Well, then share the wealth, share the knowledge. You don't have to keep going up the ladder of financial gain or personal gain or whatever it is. Sometimes just purpose is a gain in itself. Sharing that. And I challenge you that as you're growing in life and as you're trying to look at, like, again, we're in that new year transition, January, of New Year's resolution. Here I am. What do I do now? I want to quit this. I want to do this. I want to gain that. I want to move to this. I want to climb up this ladder. And that's great. But what does that look like for you in reality? We all want to have these lofty dreams and whatnot, but we have to be realistic too. Realistic, but also purposeful, and we have to be deliberate. So again, it's all about next steps. It's all about taking the necessary step in your life to push yourself and to grow. And I really want you to see yourself in a better position this year. Don't just look at, I need to check this block off and then I'll be happy. I need to reach this goal and then I'll be happy. Or I failed, so I'm a failure and this will never work for me. Take your failures and let them be your lessons. Take your failures and let them change you and shape you. Take your failures and observe and take a note of those failures. Ask yourself, why did I fail? Why did this not work? And then, okay, how can I apply this to the next step? How can I apply this lesson, this failure, to my next step in life? How do I take this lesson learned and grow from it? How do I take this lesson learned and shape myself in a position that helps me grow even further, become the man or woman that I need to be? And when you begin to do that, ask those pertinent questions, then you find yourself in a better position. You find yourself in a place where you're actually able to grow and thrive. And even if you keep falling down, that's great. It's another lesson learned. You take note, okay, this didn't work, but maybe this will. This didn't work, okay, but I'm gonna keep going. Because maybe it was trial and error. I tried it this way. Maybe if I adjust just a tad this way, this will work. This diet didn't work. Well, because it wasn't, sustainable. So let's find something that's sustainable that I can help lose weight, gain muscle, and get a healthy body. Budgeting this way didn't work. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not a Dave Ramsey fan whatsoever. I think Dave Ramsey is good for some. He's not the best for most. I think for Dave Ramsey, especially in today's culture, it doesn't always work. Not all debt is bad debt. His mindset is all debt's bad debt. Stop debt. Okay, but that's not realistic. You pay off all your debt, guess what? Your credit score goes down quite a bit, and then what happens? It's harder to buy a house or a car, whatever you need to do, right? So you have to look and do a little more research. Don't just go off of one coach, one personality, and just say, that must be it. That's the answer. No, do some research. Find different personalities, different ideas out there, and do your own research. Trial and error. Diets, trial and error. Workout plans, trial and error. Jobs, trial and error. That's how you grow. That's how you learn. That's how you become successful. Because successful isn't just, I have a lot of money, I have a great body, I have a beautiful smoking wife or husband, whatever it is. That's not just success. You look at successful as, okay, am I happy in what I do? Am I fulfilled in what I do? And do I love my life? That's the question. You can love your life and live off the land and not have a Ferrari, not be a multimillionaire. I know a lot of people that living comfortably in a tiny home on some 10 acres of land, they have some chickens and goats, and guess what? They are content and happy with life, and that is success for them. Perfect. You know, there are people that struggle with their weight and they are in the gym regular, they're eating healthy and they're still like struggling. It's hard for them to lose the weight because maybe they have a chemical imbalance or whatever it is. That's still success for them. Because guess what? They're still pushing themselves, they're still healthy, they're still motivated, they're still moving. And don't get discouraged because you don't have a beach body. Not everybody needs a beach body, but you can still be healthy and grow yourself and propel yourself and take necessary steps. So if you haven't learned anything from this, learn this and know this. Take the step that works for you. Take the step that grows you. Take the step that helps propel you. Take the step that honestly is going to get you from here to here. You don't have to jump the line. You don't have to take drastic steps. As long as you're taking progressive steps, that's what's going to help you grow as a person and as a successful individual that sees fruit and purpose in your life. If this content helped you, thanks for watching and make sure to subscribe, like, and share with a friend. Take care.